Time to put them geek-colored glasses to a stress test because we saw Argyle. We're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 209 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
So we went out to see Argyle this week.
Yes.
We did not listen to the reviews, or if we did, we knew what we were getting ourselves into.
Right. I never read the reviews, but I had known about them, and I knew about the score on Rotten Tomatoes, but I had thought that it didn't make number one on the box office. I was wrong. It did make number one on the box office, but they're still considering it a bomb.
Yeah. Well, probably because it cost them about $200 million to make. Apparently, they spent $100 million on the rights to the book, which is kind of shady, and I'm not sure if that's actually true or not, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then they spent an additional $60 million on advertising, and their opening weekend was $15 million. And there's not a whole lot of expectation they're going to make much more. But I went into it without a whole lot of knowledge about it, which is good because when they first announced the movie, the synopsis they gave of this movie had a huge spoiler about the main character of the movie. They basically gave it away in a tweet.
See, I'm glad that I hadn't seen that, and I hadn't read the book. I want to read the book now.
Maybe you do.
Maybe I don't. Okay.
Yeah, the author is the main character in the movie. What's really strange about the book was everybody was talking about how good the book was and that the movie studio spent $100 million to buy the rights to the book to make it into the movie. This was before the book had even been published, and then there was all these different delays for the book coming out. I have the feeling, I cannot confirm this, especially because the author of the book happens to be the exact same name of the main character of the movie, that this may have been something ghostwritten and promotional. It's like one of those viral promotional things that they tried to do that didn't work out too well because I'm thinking their ghostwriter had some problems writing it. But also, I've heard some people who read the book who were like, it's not really all that good.
Oh, okay.
Strangely enough, it's supposed to be very similar to what in the movie, what book 4 was in the series.
Okay.
It's about Argyle, and it's really not tied into the movie any more than, say, the book series is a part of the movie. But I have the feeling, like I said, I can't confirm it because I haven't seen anything about this, and maybe they're still covering up on it. But yeah, I have a feeling this was like something that was ghostwritten that was supposed to be like a viral promotional, something similar to some of the stuff that they did for the Blair Witch Project, where they made it feel like this was a real thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe that's the case. I don't know for sure, but yeah, that part of it didn't work out very well, and they had a tweet months ahead of the movie where they spoiled a big plot point in it.
Was it one of the twists we got? Okay.
It's like the main twist.
The main twist. Okay.
The main twist of the movie.
Okay, I don't want to get too spoilery in it, but I call it the Fight Club twist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. There are a lot of twists and turns in this.
A lot of twists and turns,
Yeah.
like so many that I was sitting next to our friend Carrie, and I pointed out one of the twists that was coming up. I was like, I bet this is the twist. And she said, if that's true, I'm going to flip a table.
Yep. And
and that was it. Yeah, that was the exact twist.
oh, yeah.
I was like, yep, the email came from this person. But the thing about Argyle, I enjoyed it. It was a bit long, and I can see why people didn't like it, because people didn't realize that it's a parody. It's an over-the-top homage to the spy genre, to the action genre of films and books, and it's like Scream. Scream was a parody movie, and people didn't understand that. Roadrunner cartoons, they were a parody, and no one got the joke, so they became staples. And so people going into Argyle and seeing these over-the-top, fantastically choreographed fight scenes with just the right colors of smoke and beauty to them.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing how ridiculous it is, but it's just the Transporter or the Fast and the Furious movies. They are over the top, and that's what we want from them. And so when people went and saw that it's just so much of it in your face, I can see it putting some people off.
Yeah.
But I still found it enjoyable.
Oh, yeah. I went into it with no expectations. And we've talked about it before. My version of Geek Colored Glasses is like turning my brain off and going, it's not going to be good, so I don't care. But I did enjoy it. The last time I saw a movie this batshit crazy, it won an Oscar. Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Huh?
And I have been thinking about why last year's version of this, and I mean, there are obviously differences between these movies, but Everything Everywhere All at Once was unapologetically weird. And they wore that on their sleeve. You knew what you were getting into. And of course, it winds up winning the Oscar. It won a bunch of Oscars. Mm-hmm. And now this movie just tanked. And I've been thinking about that for a while. I was wondering why maybe people didn't really accept that as in
I wish
Argyle.
it had been in 3D. I really do. I think it would have been beautiful in 3D.
Yeah, just go all out. But I think part of it has to do with the marketing. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at the posters, there are two characters that you think are the leads that are not the leads at all. Henry Cavill's Argyle is not the lead, and neither is the cat. But if you look at the posters, you think it's like one of them. Mm-hmm. Or both of them are the leads, and no, they're not.
Like, don't expect John Wick, don't expect Mission Impossible.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, because there were multiple twists in the movie, and some of them weren't necessarily earned. Some of them were pulled out of nowhere. I did enjoy it because I really didn't have a whole lot of expectations, but sometimes that can be a real problem. You go in with an expectation, and those expectations aren't met, then you feel like you've been cheated a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that may have been some people's problems. I can definitely tell you that the studio had absolutely no faith in it whatsoever. Oh. Because there was a review embargo. They did not allow reviews of the movie to come out until the day before the release, which is always a bad sign because that means they're trying to do damage control. They're hoping people will go see this before the reviews come out, and it's terrible. And as a side note, that same embargo is on Madam Web. It's like they're not allowing any kind of reviews to come out until the day before the movie. And I have a feeling that when it comes to Sony's Spider-Verse movies, as hard as this is going to be to believe, I think Morbius is about to lose the throne.
Oh, no.
I think Madam Web is literally going to be even worse.
Oh.
And you know it's bad when there are people that are in the movie that are having issues with the film and are not saying the best things about it. That they're trying to lighten the blow.
Oh, so we're not getting another Into the Spider-Verse.
Well, we are getting into the Spider-Verse. We're just not getting a.
We're
not going to. I think Madam Web is going to be an issue. I don't know.
It's going to be closer to Morbius than the Spider-Verse. So what about Kraven the Hunter? Have we heard anything about that?
Not really. Not really. And so I guess we'll see when it comes along. But since you have a bomb in Mobius and then you have another bomb in Madam Web, how many more shots are Sony going to be able to take? And this is something we noticed in the last couple of years and a little farther back as well, but it's getting worse and worse. It's like either a movie does really well or it just absolutely tanks. And we have seen a lot of these over $200 million movies, $150 million to $200 million movies, these blockbusters that are just getting wiped. And a studio having one movie like that's a catastrophe. It's happening over and over again. And forgive me, this analogy may be a little crude, but it's very accurate, is when I look at Hollywood, and especially trying to greenlight movies and figure out what the audience wants, right now they are doing it with the clumsy desperation of a teenage boy trying to get laid. It's very much like that because they're like, what do you want? What do you need from me? And they care about the other person up to the point where they get what they want. So, yeah, Hollywood, if there were some checklist, is what do you want in a movie? But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in courtship. It's not going to work this way here. It's really depressing because it looks like Madam Web's about ready to tank. The Marvels is now on Disney Plus. I know you haven't.
We've had some news about Young Avengers.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard.
That
Yeah,
Kamala's going to lead up the team, and we got Kate Bishop and Cassie.
yeah,
Going to lead a Young Avengers. I'm psyched for it.
yeah. Hopefully, hopefully it does well. Of course, the Disney Plus struggling, and I mean, we're having all these reshoots for Daredevil, and there's been this talk about. I haven't seen the pictures because I try to avoid all that stuff. Again, I don't like spoilers. But apparently there's some pictures of Bullseye that have people really upset about the costuming.
Mm.
But studios, if you just try to chase what the audience is saying they want, you're going to be in trouble. There are some moments where, yeah, maybe you might have to do a pivot. Like they did with Sonic, the redesign makes sense. But there will come a point where you get diminishing returns the more you do that. You can't always just ride on what you think the audience wants. That's how you get the Snyder Cut of Justice League, which, whether it was better or worse than the Joss Whedon version, that's up to you to decide, but they sunk a whole lot of money in it. And I am still a little bit bitter about it because I made the prediction, of course, that they're not going to release the Snyder Cut because it would cost so much money to do the reshoots, and no studio would be dumb enough to do it. But of course, Warner Brothers was dumb enough to do it. And it turned out exactly the way that...
It was a crazy time in history.
Yeah, exactly. And again, because of COVID and the fact they released it on HBO Max, they didn't really make any money off of it. And so it was like the worst of both worlds. It's like they dumped a whole lot of money they shouldn't into a product that they couldn't make any money off of. So what the heck, right? But yeah, the Marvels is now on Disney Plus, so maybe you'll get a chance to see it. We can maybe talk about that. There is a mid-credit scene, obviously.
Okay.
But again, with all the reshoots at Daredevil, and it says right now a lot of studios are trying to pivot and figure out how they can basically stop the bleeding. And Disney is definitely one of those as well. They just did they did their quarterly market call with their stockholders, and they talked about a lot of the movies that are going to be coming out in Disney in the next couple of years.
Lots of sequels.
Yeah, there's lots of numbers at the ends of a lot of these movies.
Right.
We're going to get another Frozen. We're going to get Mufasa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get Mufasa and another Toy Story.
Yeah, exactly. And
Zootopia.
Yep, another Zootopia. And by the way, we're going to get Moana 2 Thanksgiving. What? Where? When did this happen? It just came out of nowhere. They were just like, here's a teaser trailer for Moana 2. It's going to be out this Thanksgiving. And nobody knew anything about it, which you may or may not know. Moana is my favorite Disney animated film.
I didn't know that. Oh,
I love that movie.
Yes, it is wonderful. Yeah.
That's what made me a little bit worried about the live action version, because the live action versions of a lot of these movies haven't been the best. But I loved Moana. And the possibility of getting a second one, from my understanding, was they were planning on doing a Disney Plus show. And they were putting it together and animating. And Bob Iger saw this and said, we need to put this on the big screen. Let's not do a TV show. So that's one of the reasons why they're going to be able to turn this thing around as fast as they're going to be able to.
They are pretty good when it comes to their TV shows from movies. Like the Aladdin TV show was great. It had all these great mythos and monsters behind it, and Young Hercules, The Emperor's New School, Little Mermaid had its own TV show, and they were always really good.
Yeah, and the little that I've seen of the artwork for X-Men 97, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yes.
That was, for me and my brother Craig, he would come over on Saturdays, and we'd watch X-Men. But you're getting the artwork and you're getting the old voice actors back. I'm definitely excited to see that again, at least, like I said, the nostalgia side of it. But right now, Hollywood is in a bad way. Right now, Hollywood is trying to find the formula to get people back in the theaters. And I think it's going to be really difficult.
I know, Brian. Founders Day was...
It was what? What was it exactly?
Exactly what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And there is this love of like really cheesy movies. Cocaine Bear wasn't Shakespeare, but I enjoyed the heck out of it, but I knew what I was getting into. That was the thing. And I think maybe that's where Everything Everywhere All at Once did it right. They were weird, but they let people know they were going to be weird. If you'd seen The Kingsman, you knew what you were getting into with Argyle, because that goes over the top. But you knew that going into it. And I think maybe the fact that people weren't exactly sure what they were getting into with Argyle, especially with that cast. Good Lord.
Yeah,
I mean, that,
and everyone was in it.
yeah, absolutely. It was
Stars everywhere.
exactly.
And stars that we love.
Yeah. And people who have done amazing work. And obviously, you're going to go into this thinking, oh man, this is going to be epic. And
it was epic.
It
you
was.
Can't deny that.
No,
Can't deny that it was epic.
I cannot deny it was epic. But again, this puts me in like a weird situation because, and we've talked about this before when it comes to being a reviewer, if you just go into a movie to see it, oh, it was fun. Me going to a movie, me going to see Argyle, sitting in the seat and just watching just the craziest stuff happen, I had a great time. But now if I got to come back and I got to write a review, I'm not going to give it a glowing review. I can't. This is a movie that I feel down the road that if somebody's doing something similar to Mystery Science Theater or Riff Tracks, it's going to be one of those movies that gets that treatment. And again, one of our friends who went to see it, you were talking about Carrie, she hated this with the fury of 1,000 exploding suns. She hated this movie. And on the other end of it, of course, Kevin Polley loved it. So it was weird seeing that. But again, Carrie, she loves the Ice Cream Rabbit. And that movie wasn't trying to be goofy, but wow, was it? But again, you see the first 2 minutes of this movie and you know what you're getting into. I think that's the thing. I feel like maybe if they had been not necessarily given away the twist, but if maybe the marketing had given you a better idea what you were getting into, maybe people would have accepted it a little bit more. This may, I hope, maybe eventually this movie could become like a cult classic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Because
they built that into the book signings. People dressed up in the clothes and the books themselves, like hanging behind her and the posters of the books hanging behind her. They've built that in. There's already a culture there that is going to be tapped into. And I picture people going on Amazon to order their Argyle uniforms and crushed velvet suits.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Rocky Horror Picture Show is not necessarily a good movie, but the audience makes it good.
They love it.
Yeah, but if a meme starts saying it's Argyle time, that doesn't mean you should re-release the movie. Again, that clumsy desperation of Hollywood, it's more been time, oh, it's hot, let's put it back out there again. And they're like,
go ahead, we'll go see it.
Yeah.
Bring it out in 3D. Yeah, you hear me, Apple?
Yeah.
On 3D, just for me.
There you go. Yeah, I would. I might have to go back to see that in 3D, especially now that I know what you're getting.
The smoke scenes and even the cat in the backpack would be really cool in 3D.
Oh, yeah. I would think so. I don't know how much 3D would cost. I don't know how much extra work time, how much money that might cost. And certainly at this point, I'm always of the mind that be careful about how much extra money you put into a movie, thinking that you can recover something. How good is that going to work out for you? I don't know. But I have to admit, I had a great time watching Argyle, but then again, I wasn't expecting an awful lot. I went into it with absolutely no expectations, and I was able to scavenge a good time out of all of that.
And if you go see it, you will enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, I think so. If you go in there with the right mindset and you're like, oh, this is just going to be a weird ride, let's have a good time. And if you enjoy the reactions of your audience around you, because there were a few times where people in the audience literally cried, what the F? What? There were people who were very vocal about how weird this was. But I really wonder what's going to happen with Hollywood, because there's only so much goodwill they have left. And especially with how the paradigm shift has happened and people are wanting to stay home and watch movies. And you do that more than anything.
Yes.
Of course, there's a possibility you're going to watch the Marvels sometime in the next sometime, and we can talk about it then. But people are tending to stay home more, and I've heard a lot of people say that this was something that was going to happen eventually anyway. But when COVID hit, it took a 10-year path and compressed it into 2 years. And so this was something that Hollywood had a fear that this could happen, and they were hoping to turn it around in the time they had left, but now they don't have any time left. And that's going to be a real issue because you can't spend $200 million on a movie, not even make a half of it back.
Right.
You have to make a profit. They're putting out all these big blockbuster movies with the budgets that they're just used to spending, and they're just not getting the return. And you can only do that so many times. So this is going to be a really interesting year because it seems like it's a crapshoot. Nobody's breaking even anymore. It's either going to be a raging success or it's going to be a complete catastrophe and a disaster of biblical proportions. I'm expecting a catastrophe of biblical proportions for Madam Web, but I guess we'll see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 209. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.